same thing. Now we're going to create the player movement script. So we're going to have a speed, a gravity, a jump height. We're going to create a ground check because we want to be able to jump, and we want to check if we're standing on the ground to be able to jump. We're also going to have a velocity for the jump, and we're going to have this boolean that checks if we're grounded. And we're also going to store our last position because we want to know if we're moving or not, and that's something we're going to use later on. So in the start, we're simply going to have a reference to our character controller, and I forgot to add it over here. And inside the update, we're going to actually over here, and inside the update, we're going forgot to add it over here. inside the update, we're going to actually check if is grounded is true or not, if we're standing on the ground. So we're going to use this physics check sphere, and it's basically just creating a sphere from the ground check position, and simply checks if this ground check position is inside this distance of the ground mask of the layer. So it basically checks if the ground check position is touching the ground layer, which will be the actual ground, the floor, or whatever surface you're standing on. Then we're going to simply reset the velocity y, because if we're not jumping, so if we landed and the velocity is not bigger than 0, then we want to make it minus 2f, because each time we jump, the velocity builds up, so we don't want to let these values build up. Each time we're landing back, we want it to be back at minus 2f. Next, we're going to get the actual inputs for the y and z. Now, after we get the input, we're simply going to store all of this input inside this new move vector. We're simply going to store all of this input inside this new move vector, and we're going to multiply the actual input by the direction. The transform right is the red axis, it's if we go left or right, and the forward, the transform forward, is if we go forward or backwards. And we're simply going to multiply it by the X and the Z. Now we're actually going to move the player, so we use the character controller, the X and the Z. Now we're actually, and the forward is the red axis, it's if we go left or right, and the forward, the transform forward, is if we go forward or backwards. And we're simply going to multiply it by the X and the Z. Now we're actually going to move the player, so we use the character controller and we use this move method, and we provide it with this move vector that we created. We will multiply it by the speed and by time delta time, because we want it to be consistent with all the other frame rates. Now we want to check if the player can jump. So if we press on the jump button, which is space, and we're actually standing on the ground, then we're going to create this equation that will make our player jump, right? Because we don't want to jump if